11C, approve Mechanicsville, Lonsdale, Beaumont Schools Plan Proposal.
Motion by Reverend Butler, a second by Ms. Christie. I see we have some discussion. Ms. Faulkner-Ridley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are a few things that I have a concern with. I was able to go over the survey that was given out, but there was no mention that a merger was a possibility, and I feel like that should be pretty transparent if we're talking about closing 4 schools or moving the students from 4 schools into 1. As a public educator in inner city schools for my entire career, I know how important it is for community schools, and I mentioned this on Monday. But best practices were mentioned in the proposal, and I'm not exactly sure where those best practices came from, mainly because countless studies have been done and articles written about the importance of small elementary schools, especially in more disadvantaged communities. Each piece of information that I read has stressed the importance of relationships that schools, that staff, students, and parents form when they go to a small elementary school. I understand that larger schools in the county have performed well, but to compare affluent school area schools with large populations and additional support from foundation as other opportunities that enhance the experiences of those schools, comparing them to schools in disadvantaged areas that do not benefit from all the extras is like comparing apples to oranges. West Ed, which is a information policy company out of California, in an information analysis states that smaller is better when taking into account how disadvantaged the communities are. Poor and minority students benefit most from smaller population sizes. Positive changes that smallness invites include the forming of strong personal bonds, parent and community involvement, simplicity and focus, and improved instructional quality, improved teacher working conditions, and job satisfaction, and built-in accountability. Not to beat a dead horse about me teaching, but going from teaching in a school with less than 500 kids in any given year to representing a larger schools in District 3 has been a real eye-opener. While I've witnessed how great the larger schools are and feel of the smaller schools, and the connections between children and pretty much every single adult in the building is so special. Every school has its own identity, and to assume that a child who struggles sometimes to just get to school will rise to the challenge, it's not something based in reality. Investment in the neighborhood schools could be something great. Would it be wrong with using the funds allocated for the new school to bring the smaller schools up to the programming levels of the larger schools in the county? And as for raising scores, that money could be used for support such as tutoring, after-school opportunities for students who are struggling. I've seen firsthand how these supports have been helpful and brought big results. In addition, I've heard from some parents of schools in the affected schools, concerns lie with the fact that the current proposal is a building proposal only, with no programming that will be offered. To make a deal before any indication of the impact on the school communities involved is troubling. I would like to see a concerted effort and promise that certain opportunities remain, such as the arts program at Beaumont. I would like to suggest we table the vote, if that's a possibility, until more information and input from all parts of the community and the school staff. I know that there's at least one of the administrators involved in one of these schools whose doctorate is in urban education. So to not try to gather information and opinions from the administration, I think we've missed an opportunity to actually see kind of how they feel. So.
Ms. Pike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few more questions about this, but I really appreciate everyone answering all the questions I've had over the last few days. Corey, Keith, Garfield, and I, I know that this is, building a new school is always a big deal and comes with lots of questions. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you came up with the total number of students that you would plan for this school. I know you touched on it a little bit in some of it, but just, you don't have to go too in depth, but just, as I remember, I think it was 1,000 elementary school, 500 middle school. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, Ms. Bike. So yes, we're looking at projected numbers and then working with not-for-profit planning, also with the development in that area and with the current population of students. That's where we came up with the numbers of 1,000 and approximately 600 middle school students. That would bring those students back into their community.
Mm-hmm. So it's the students that are at the current schools will, or the zoned, because I know that those students, this is going to take years. So we're not talking about those specific students, but potentially the families that are zoned for those schools, will some of them end up being zoned for other schools? Or is it every family that's currently zoned for those plus more?
So the plus more would be the students that are currently bused out of their community. They would be coming back to their communities.
Okay. But for the ones that are zoned for and currently in those schools, none of them would go back out to other schools?
That is correct. Those
Okay.
students would not be farmed out of their communities.
Okay. Thank you. Next question is that do you expect to have the same kind of number of transfer students that would want to go to this school and be able to allow that space for them?
So the current numbers that we have does accommodate for the transfer students.
Mm-hmm.
I can't speak to what that looks like in the next 5 years, but I will say traditionally the numbers that we have with the projected numbers are pretty sufficient to hold those students.
Okay.
Just to put it in perspective, the school has 247,000 square feet approximately.
Yeah. And next question is, I'm curious if you've looked at the distance from the 3 schools that we're talking about to the rural high site.
So when I'm a little confused. What question are you asking?
I'll explain. Sorry, it's been a long day.
No, that's okay. I just want to make sure I'm answering the right question.
Basically, I'm curious about with pulling these schools into one school plus having a middle school, the distance that students will travel and be expected to travel, and how many of those will it take out of their neighborhoods to get to this school?
So the communities that the school will be serving, it does, like when you look at zoning, it is within the zone. Mm-hmm. So it's not pulling them out of their zone, it's keeping them in their zone. So okay. it would accommodate the needs of a zone, I guess, is what you're asking me. These students would, if you were to look at this on a zoning map, then these students would be within their zone. They would not be out of their zone.
Okay. I guess, sorry, I'm trying to articulate the pictures in my mind. So like for the students that go to Beaumont, that are zoned for Beaumont, and like they're talking about a walking school bus and all of these other things. And I know that to a certain extent the parental responsibility zone, if there, will change, but will these students then be expected to get on a bus and get to there? Is this, I'm sorry that I have not looked on the map and Google mapped to see how far they are, but I'm curious if you guys have.
So one of the reasons we don't do zoning until that comes after, right? So just like for instance Farragut, the new school, the elementary school in Farragut, just like Mill Creek, right? So we look at the zoning lines. This is much more clean because this school is serving in a particular community, and so this is a little different from other situations where
Yeah.
we're busing students out of their community. This would be serving student in the communities that it serves. So I guess it's just more of a clean feeder pattern when you look at it. And so it's very unique because it's in a center city and because it's landlocked and because it's in a concentrated area. The zoning looks very clean when you look at actually doing the school zones.
Okay. And then 2 more questions. If you were to have programming that had theater and things like that, would there be a stage incorporated, or would that be something that would come after it being built?
So that's a part of the process of the actual design. We would work very closely with academics. We'd work very closely with the arts programs. We'd work very closely with the principal or the director for those regions, and what would the school entail. So yes, if there was an art program, we would design the school for an art program. If there was a dance program, we would design the school for a stage. So it's just the programs would determine what the actual schools look like.
Okay.
I mean, unique areas within the school would look like.
Yeah. Thank you. And my last question is that the title of this has Lonsdale in it, but am I correct that we're not actually, Lonsdale's not included in this plan?
They are included.
They are included.
There is a section of Lonsdale, if you look at it now, and I will say every Lonsdale, the 2 Lonsdale meetings I went, the families knew exactly where it was. They're like, yeah, that doesn't really belong in that area. So it's like on the ridge, and so that area would be included in a natural zone.
So Lonsdale community, but not school. Is that?
That is correct. Yeah,
Okay.
Yes. It's just a portion of the community that's literally outside of the zone of Lonsdale.
Okay.
It goes back to making clean feeder patterns. We would just clean that up.
Okay, so would any of the students that currently go to, that are zoned for Lonsdale end up being zoned for this one, or do we just not know that yet?
If you look at it now, I'd say there would be a small portion. That's why we included Lonsdale in the community meetings.
Okay.
But it's not a large portion of students.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Those are good questions. Ms. Templeton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry. Yes, so I do have one question about just timeline. At what point in this timeline is a principal decided upon?
That's a good question, because I think that is a good education for folks to know how that works.
It
Dr.
is.
Reiswick.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Ms. Templeton. So the way that works, I think this is 3 years out, if I'm right, Dr. Adams. We usually do that the end of the year before, so they have a year that they work without the building, because at that point, the design and the plan and all is there. They use that time to do community meetings. Lots of times there's pick on things like color, sometimes naming of the facility, all those kinds of things. And so when we do all of that, then that person's kind of the point for that. They go out and do the community meeting. So it's the year before the school would open.
Okay.
2 years out. Correct, 2 years out. If it's 3 years now, it'd be 2 years out before
Yeah.
we name that person. They have a full year to work, basically without an operational building, and go from there. I think we did it most recently with Dr. Schaefnacher at Mill Creek, had the year before to work
Yeah,
and do
and I'll
community.
say it was a really cool process to see that, because what she did was she didn't have a building at that time, but what she did was work out of the schools that it was pulling from. So she really got to know those communities, and so it really helped set the culture for Mill Creek. And she built her team. It was really cool to see from start to finish how it really kind of builds the community, and then the community gets really excited about it.
Right, and I appreciate that there's a process in place, and that the community is a part of that conversation, and led by the principal, who's going to be doing the work, doing the really hard work. I absolutely appreciate that. I do believe, however, that we are in a very unique situation with this property and with these particular schools that, you all heard everything I had to say on Monday, and I don't feel the need to repeat all of it. And we've all received a lot of emails from the community this week, which thank you to everyone who has sent an email. I know this is somewhat anecdotal, but it really is important for us to hear from our communities on the impact of any of our decisions. So Anecdotally, thank you to everyone here who's going to speak on this, and also thank you to all of those who have reached out via phone and email. So that aside, I want to take into account the words that people took the time to reach out and say. This community is somewhat unique because it does have the school that receives the most transfer requests in it because of its arts integrated curriculum. And that's something that I believe the community has already gotten behind due to the... Nope, you're good. I thought it was myself talking back to me. So
We've
I'm
all
here for
been
that.
there.
I was like, I'm
think
hearing voices.
I
It's
think
fine.
everybody looked to see if it was their phone.
No, it's good. You're good.
We've all been there.
We've all been there. No, but I do want to recognize that this is a unique opportunity because Western Heights has had a lot of conversation about what their community can be and what they want to get behind. And that is seen in the Western Heights Transformation Plan. In that transformation plan, there are maker spaces. There are opportunities for arts creation and education. There's an incubator for Real Good Kitchen. And I believe this is an opportunity for the board to set a vision for this school. I do not think that we need to set the curriculum for the school, but setting a vision with the needs of the community that we already know is important for all those who will be affected. So I would like to amend the motion. And Ms. Coatney, I would like it to say, I would like to approve the K-9 Mechanicsville, Lonsdale, Beaumont Schools Plan proposal to include comparable magnet type funding, dedicated transfer seats, arts integrated curriculum, and honors opportunities. These are the things that we have learned from the Beaumont experience, the things that make that experience positive for everyone that lives under its roof. And please understand that this plan, I recognize, affects the Westview families as well as the Maynard families, and I want to be sensitive to that because they are doing incredible work under their roofs as well. So let that be on the record that I understand that. I am at this moment focusing on the magnet school that is Beaumont and what has worked and the programming that has worked, and I want to set a vision to allow for that in the future. So I've amended the motion.
Okay. So an amended motion by Ms. Templeton, seconded by Ms. Pike. Do we want to do a roll? Is there any more discussion on Ms. Christie? And then I'll call.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions, I guess, about the amended motion. And first, let me just say, as far as the excitement in the Western Heights development, and I think, Ms. Henderson, you were probably the only other currently sitting board member on the board when this happened, but KCDC did a presentation for this board in 2021. So I feel like this discussion has been ongoing for quite a while. I mean, I feel like even before Dr. Adams came on, I feel like we were having, or Dr. Ricewick, I know I had conversations with Mr. Thomas and Mr. Oakes about it. So I do feel like this really isn't, and it is exciting. I mean, all those things were in there that you talked about, the maker spaces and the food courts and all that. I guess my only question, because we typically, well, first, correct me if I'm wrong, but the design phase still has to come back to the board for approval, right? The school design still has to come back to this board for approval, which should entail all those things people are asking for, right? I guess my question is, and my hesitancy is, typically we do not get that far ahead as far as curriculum and things like that. So I kind of would like to know the associated costs with that. I mean, it's hard to vote on something without knowing what kind of fiscal impact it might have.
Ms. Morgan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to just reiterate, this was mentioned Monday, but at hearing that the community wasn't given a chance to speak into this and that kind of thing, there were 8 community meetings, is that right, Dr. Adams? 8. When we did the Farragut solution last year, we had 3, and that was a lot. I was at all of them. 3 was a lot. 8's a lot of meetings. They were made accessible in multiple languages. They were at different times of day so that people could attend them. I do think that 8 community meetings is a lot of opportunity for people to ask questions and voice their concerns with things. So I couldn't in good faith table this or anything like that. I think all of the appropriate steps and measures have been taken. Additionally, this is Reverend Butler's district. He knows this community. He knows what this community needs. He has spent years working on this with the KCS staff and with his constituents in his district. And I think it's overstepping for a lot of us in different districts to say what we think another district would need and what would be best for their community. So Dr. Butler said on Monday that he ships this, as the kids say. My kids will die that I just said that out loud. Don't tell them. But that he fully supports this. And so I defer to him. You support it, Dr. Butler. That's what you said Monday. I could have used it totally wrong, too. I'm not a student, clearly. So I go with what Dr. Butler says. Again, it's his community. He knows. And I support him. Ms. Elkins may be like, she is crazy. I don't know what she just said. But I respect what Dr. Butler has done in the work there. So I think if he supports it and is on board, and that's the recommendation from our staff, that I support this proposal.
Do we have any more discussion on this? Ms. Fontenot-Ridley.
Thank you. So is there any chance of tabling this and talking more to like schools administrators and all that?
I mean, procedurally, you could make a motion to table it, and then if you had a second, then we would take a vote on it.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to table this until at least the next board meeting so that more information can be given out to the communities about what they're what they could expect.
Okay, motion by Ms. Fontenot-Ridley. Is there a second? Okay, seeing there's no second, that motion fails. So we're back then to the amended motion. If there's no more discussion on this, we do have a public forum speaker on this item that I'll bring up. And we can have, Dr. Butler. Yeah. So on the voting items, we take like the speakers on that item and then do a vote. I should have called him before discussion, but when it's on a voting item, we take those specific speakers on that item.
But the speaker had signed up to speak on C and not on the amendment. But
Oh,
I'm just asking about that from the point of order.
that is a good question. I don't think we've ever had this before.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To answer your question, Reverend Butler, this
Yeah.
is something unique to the board, that the board allows speakers to speak before the motion. So, and as the chair said, I mean, normally when the motion is called on the docket, then that's when the speaker is allowed to come up, even before the discussion's had. So, as a matter of practice, I think this board can allow the speaker now, but I mean, you know, that's, we're a little out of order at this point anyway, so.
Mr. Jernigan, would you like to come up? You will have 3 minutes. Just state your name and county of residence, and welcome again this week.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. The work that has been moved forward to create the opportunity for this new school has obviously been massive. And as I mentioned on Monday night, the alternative location that I'm suggesting for this school is the Knoxville College property. I sent an email out to all the board members earlier today, and then I brought the copy of the email that I sent as a handout with a little map attached so you can see exactly where the properties are that I'm discussing. The situation is that the debt owner of the $4.7 million first mortgage on the Knoxville College property is offering it to the Knox County school system to be able to purchase that note. That would give the school board the effective control of the 54-acre site. Of the 54 acres, approximately 11.5 acres is already zoned for 256 housing units. It does not appear that there's any kind of difficulty or environmental condition with that 11.5 acres. It's generally flat to rolling. It has great road access. It is exactly the kind of rectangular property that is easy to develop for a school with playground facilities or sports fields. In addition to that property being available, there were a number of questions that I don't believe I have seen answered in the public. For example, what are the schools that are being traded? What is Maynard Elementary? What is the value that's associated with that school in the public market? Beaumont has 76,000 square feet in it on 6.5 acres. What is that land worth that's being traded to the Knox County for the rural high school site? Those properties have really significant value in the open market, I feel, and it doesn't seem exactly correct that that should be traded for the rural high school property, which the county spent 30 years trying to give away. So now we have a situation where there are real benefits to the city, to the community, to the betterment of education in all of Knoxville for the school board to move forward with acquiring the Knox College debt and therefore the ownership of the property to be able to make things move forward in a positive way for the public education in Knoxville. In the email, you can see that I've detailed several other questions as to what is Knox County's obligation to use these buildings. Will Maynard become UT housing? I mean, you talk about some place that you could put in 60, 70 beds for UT housing. Maynard Elementary would be the perfect location. Are there going to be any requirements on what Knox County is going to be allowed to do? So these are things that I think deserve further discussion. A tabling of the issue, as has been brought out, which unfortunately didn't get a second, would give the opportunity to have really robust conversations with the community, because the Flanagan School was turned into a permanent supportive housing, and I'm not sure that anybody in the schools in these neighborhoods would want as a permanent. I think it's a wonderful thing. Flanagan School has been a great asset, but it's the kind of thing you need to have neighborhood involvement in.
Thank you, Mr. Jernigan.
To let them see it coming. I'm finished.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right. Yeah. Ms. Tim, oh,
Is there anybody else anymore?
that's it for public forum. Do you want to speak? Yeah.
I do.
Yep.
I apologize. I was caught off guard mid-talk last time, so I wanted to kind of go back to my thoughts.
Yeah.
Sorry. There's something important that I believe is part of this amendment, this amended motion, and what I want to reiterate are the set-aside seats that the current school and the magnet schools provide. And that is very important in this community because it provides opportunity for out-of-zone kids to participate in the school as a whole. These were my words on Monday, and I'm going to say them again because I want to make it very clear as to why I've put forth this motion, both as a parent of a child that goes to Beaumont and somebody who has driven to that school for the last 8 years, and I'm very familiar with the community. And And I've joined arms with families that are zoned for that school. And so I could speak personally about that experience. So these were my words. For years, this Arts Integration Magnet School has been the most sought-after magnet program in our district. This designation allows teachers to weave the arts into their curriculum, making learning more engaging and fostering creativity. It also encourages parent involvement through events like exhibit nights, drawing families into the school and strengthening the community as a whole. What's important to note about magnet schools is that they allocate a number of seats for transfers. This offers families choice within the public school system. This structure not only promotes socioeconomic diversity, but it fuels school success. Engaged parents play a vital role in PTAs, organizing fundraisers, and supporting staff needs. I believe that this K-8 school is a win for this community, especially when it is set up correctly and with intention. That is the purpose behind this amended motion.
Thank you. Ms. Fike?
Thank you. Really, I just turned my light on because I wanted to officially apologize to Ms. Templeton. I am so sorry. And I have learned my lesson on clicking on things that people have sent me. So, but with that, I agree. And I know that everyone has put a lot of hard work into this, but my nephew is at Beaumont, and it would be a shame to lose some of that, and that is why I seconded this. But I do also believe that through the conversations that I've had with Ms. Lautner, Mr. Wilson, and Mr. Adams, that it seems like that that will be a part of it, but I really like this as a guarantee that it will be a part of it. And I know that, from those conversations that it's hard to guarantee those things because there's a whole process, but yeah, so thank you, and officially apologize.
I appreciate that. Reverend Butler? Oh, I'm so sorry. Ms. Faulkner-Ridley, I apologize.
That's okay.
You're just like in my line of sight there.
Thank you. I just want to go on record because I feel like this is going to happen. I have all faith in Knox County Schools, in the administration, in the supervisors, in the teachers, in the communities, that they are going to make this work no matter what. So I just want to go on the record by saying that, if it's going to happen, and I support everything.
Awesome, thank you. Reverend Butler.
First of all, I want to, just for clarification, the middle school portion of the K-8 would include the Lonsdale students, or the students from Lonsdale. I know when you were talking specifically about the elementary school, but I just wanted to point that out. And in terms of the magnet program and all the programs that are at all the different schools, we've talked about this, that we want to keep the best and add more of the rest of the best. So, and we do recognize the strength of the magnet programs at Beaumont. And so that was part of the Region 5 priorities, was part of the best practices. So all of that is already there. I think also the process that was defined somewhat a little bit more tonight is that as we go through this process of adding the design and programmatic items, at that time we will have parental, staff, and community support as well. This is the beginning of the process. And so for me, I would like for us to continue the process that we use, and that way you have as much fairness and as much, I think the more you stick to your process, the better you are at making sure you do as much right as possible. So I wish that we could guarantee. But in my mind, one thing that I'm guaranteeing is that as the District 1 representative, I'm going to fight and scratch for every program that we can get in that school in the best interest of all the kids in that community. And also just make sure I think that all of us are responsible for every school in Knox County. So I don't have a problem with anyone suggesting that we do things that you think are best. I welcome that. But in this particular case, I think we should stick with the process. And I think that process will work. But I would say to everyone who care, continue to be involved in the process. Continue to hold us accountable. Continue to demand what you need and what you want for your students. That's what we're here to do. But at this point, I want to get it done.
I do. I appreciate your motion, Ann, and your heart, because I agree. I think that we have certain gems in our community, Beaumont being one of them, L&N being another one. Like, we just have these certain schools that are, I have a heart for these schools, and I reached out to a couple Beaumont parents this afternoon to talk to them, and so I do agree with you, but I agree with Reverend Butler of let's follow the process, and I've seen this process with Mill Creek and with the Farragut solution. I've seen how Dr. Reiswick and his team are so intentional and thoughtful through that whole process, so I do have faith in that. So while I love your heart and I love that you brought this, I'm going to have to agree with Reverend Butler on the process on this, because I do think that this will come. I do think that this vision will come, and it will include the community and the new principal and everything. So I am excited about that. And I do want to make sure that we do hold ourselves accountable, that we do have these things included. Anybody else? Discussion? Okay. All right. We'll do roll call, and this is on the amended motion. Ms. Coatney.
Dr. Butler.
I'll pass.
Ms. Templeton.
Yes.
Ms. Fontenot Ridley.
Yes.
Ms. Bike.
Yes.
Ms. Morgan.
No.
Mr. Wright.
No.
Ms. Christie.
No.
Ms. Henderson.
No.
That is 3 yes votes and 4 no votes and 1 pass. Dr. Butler, would you like to change your pass vote?
I will continue where I am.
Okay.
Thank you.
So 4 no, 3 yes. Okay. That motion fails, so we will go back to the original motion that was made by Reverend Butler and seconded by Ms. Christie, which is the motion on the agenda. So,
Dr. Butler.
Yes.
Ms. Templeton. Yes. Ms. Fontenot Ridley.
I swear I'd never do this, but I pass.
Okay. Ms. Bike.
Yes.
Ms. Morgan.
Yes.
Mr. Wright.
Yes.
Ms. Christie. Ms. Henderson.
yes.
That is 7 yes votes and 1 pass. Ms. Fontenot Ridley, would you like to change your pass? No.
Motion carries.